36, this $8 Amish wall mix seals cracks for 100 years. The drywall industry hopes. You never hear. The crack runs down the wall like a lightning scar. You've seen it before. Your hand brushes dust from it again. Same place, same line, back again. There's a small bucket on the floor, half-used compound drying around the rim. That store-bought patch looked perfect 2 weeks ago. Now it's failing like dry earth after rain. I scraped mine open last night. The blade caught harder than it should have, like the wall was holding on to something it didn't trust. There's a jar sitting on the workbench too, cloudy glass, off-white mix inside, no label, no brand, just quiet weight. A neighbor once told me about it, said some old crews still use a mix like that for cracks that refuse to stay shut. $8. That's what he said it cost to make. And the strange part, he wouldn't tell me what was inside it. Something about that stayed with me longer than the crack itself. If you've lived long enough in one house, you start noticing things most people miss. Walls that don't stay fixed. Repairs that only last a season. Old tricks your father or grandfather never bothered to write down. If you've got a story like that, share it in the comments. Not the expert kind of story, the real one. And if you like hearing how older hands used to solve problems without running to a store, stay close here. This place tends to collect those kinds of memories. The house is quiet in that late evening way, just the refrigerator humming. Pipes settling, wood breathing slow. That crack on the wall runs straight down like it's been measured. Too straight to feel natural. Too familiar to ignore. I first noticed it last winter. Small enough to dismiss. Thin as a pencil line. The kind you tell yourself you'll fix later. So I did what most people do. I bought the tube, the ready mix, the promise in a plastic bucket. It went on smooth, clean, almost too easy. Looked perfect by morning light. For a while it held, 2 weeks, maybe 3. Then one morning the light hit it differently, and there it was again. Same line, same place, like it had been waiting patiently under the surface. I remember just standing there longer than I should. Not angry at first, just tired. Because this wasn't the first time. I scraped it open again that afternoon. The utility knife felt too light in my hand, like it wasn't made for anything real anymore. Dust came off in a fine powder, dry, soft, almost lifeless, and I thought quietly, without saying it out loud, why does something this simple keep failing? That question has a way of sticking. My neighbor came by later that week, old-timer, quiet kind of man, always watching things more than talking about them. He saw the crack, didn't say much at first, just nodded like he'd seen it in other houses, too. Then he mentioned something under his breath. Said some old Amish crews used a wall mix that didn't behave like the modern stuff. Said it didn't shrink the same. Didn't crack back open so easily. I asked him what was in it. He just shook his head once, like the answer wasn't meant for passing around. That was it. But that's the kind of thing your mind holds on to. A sentence half finished. After that, every patch in this house started to feel temporary. Like I was renting my own repairs. I started noticing other places too. Corners that had been fixed twice. A seam above the door that always seemed slightly off after summer heat. Modern compounds are strange that way. They promise speed, ease, clean finish, and they deliver at first. But something in them feels impatient. Like they want to be done before they've really settled into the wall. One evening I caught myself just staring at the bucket in the garage. Half used, crusted at the rim. It wasn't the crack bothering me anymore. It was the cycle. Fix, fail, repeat. There's a kind of quiet frustration that builds when you realize you're doing the same repair twice for the same reason. Not because you did it wrong, but because the material never really finished its job in the first place. That thought stayed with me longer than I expected. And somewhere in that space between frustration and curiosity, I made a decision I didn't fully understand yet. I stopped buying more patch kits. Not out of protest, just hesitation, like I was waiting for something older to catch up to me. That's when I started looking for the mix my neighbor wouldn't describe. And the first place it appeared wasn't in a store. It was in a mason jar sitting on a wooden shelf in a barn that hadn't been modernized in any meaningful way. But I didn't know that yet. Not until I saw it up close. The barn smelled like old wood that has stopped trying to be new. Dust in the air, but not the sharp kind. The settled kind, the kind that tells you nothing here has been rushed in a long time. I remember stepping inside and slowing down without meaning to. Like the place set its own pace, and you either matched it or felt out of place. There were tools along the wall, not organized for display, just placed where they were last used, and on a narrow shelf near the workbench, I saw it. A mason jar, no label, no lid decoration, no brand mark. Nothing modern about it at all. Just cloudy glass and something thick inside. Off-white, slightly uneven, like it had been stirred once, then left alone on purpose. It didn't look like a product. It looked like something still in use. The man there, older, quiet hands, sleeves rolled halfway up, noticed me looking at it. He didn't offer an explanation right away, just wiped his hands on a rag. Slow, careful. Then he said almost casually, "That's for cracks that keep coming back. Not repair, not fix. Cracks that keep coming back." That wording stuck. He opened the jar and stirred it with a small wooden stick, not fast, not trying to blend it smooth, just enough to wake it up. It moved heavy, like wet soil after rain, not runny, not airy, controlled. He didn't measure anything, didn't glance at instructions. Just watched it respond. I asked him what was in it. He gave the kind of answer people give when they don't believe in short explanations. Lime base, he said, something mineral, and fibers, something to hold it together while it sets. Then he added something quieter. Most modern stuff is made to feel easy first. He didn't say it like criticism, more like observation. That line followed me out of the barn, because it explains something I had never been able to name. Modern wall compound does feel easy. It spreads like butter, sands like flour, dries fast enough to make you think you're done. But maybe that's part of the problem. Easy doesn't always mean finished. Back at home, I kept thinking about that jar, the way it didn't move like store-bought mud, the way it resisted being rushed. So I started doing something I don't usually do. I stopped looking for instructions first. Instead, I looked at the wall again. Not the crack this time, the behavior of it. It wasn't just opening, it was shifting slightly with temperature, expanding in heat, tightening in cold, like it never fully settled. That's when the suspicion formed, quiet, not dramatic. Maybe the material wasn't failing randomly. Maybe it was reacting exactly the way it was designed to react. Fast set, quick finish, move on. Because if a wall stays fixed too long, you don't buy much else. I didn't go looking for a conspiracy. That's not how this started. It started with inconvenience. The kind that repeats itself just often enough to feel intentional. I went back to the barn a second time a week later. This time I asked more directly. He told me something I didn't expect. He said variations of that mix were common in older rural building traditions. Not one recipe, not one origin, just shared understanding across different hands. Materials that didn't depend on speed. Walls built with patience instead of deadlines. He paused before adding one more thing. Anything that dries too fast, he said, forgets how to stay together. That line landed deeper than the crack in my wall ever did, because I knew exactly what he meant. We've all seen it. Something that looks perfect early, then slowly gives up later. Back home, I finally opened the bucket again, the modern one. Stirred it slowly this time like I was trying to understand it instead of use it. It didn't change. Still smooth, still quick, still eager. And for the first time, that felt like a warning instead of a convenience. That night, I didn't fix the wall. I just stood there looking at it longer than before. And I made a decision I couldn't fully explain yet. I was going to test the other way. Not on a hidden corner, not on something easy, on the worst part of the crack. The one that kept coming back like it had unfinished business. The next morning I went looking for lime and fiber and whatever else had been sitting in that jar. But I didn't yet understand what I was actually trying to build. Only that I was done trusting anything that forgot how to stay together. And what I found when I finally mixed it didn't behave like anything I had used before. The bucket didn't feel familiar in my hands. Even though I'd mixed compound 100 times before, this time it didn't behave like compound at all. It resisted the spoon at first. Thick in a way that wasn't stubborn, just grounded. Like it didn't care about speed. I kept stirring until my arms slowed down to match it. Not the other way around. That's when I noticed something simple. It didn't loosen up the more I worked it. It stayed together. Not runny, not airy. No shine. Just a quiet, packed consistency like damp earth held in place. I thought about the mason jar again. The way it had been stirred, then left alone. Not perfected, not polished, just ready. So I stopped overthinking it and went to the wall. The crack was worse in daylight. That's how most things are. Better seen when you stop ignoring them. I pressed the mix into it with my fingers first. Not a knife, not a tool. Fingers, it felt wrong for a second, too physical, too direct. But it didn't smear like modern compound, it packed. Like filling a narrow seam in old wood, like pushing soil back into a fence post hole after rain. It held its shape immediately, no sliding. No dripping, no collapsing back out, just stayed. There's a moment when you realize a material is behaving differently than expected. Not better or worse yet, just different. I kept working it along the line slowly, small sections, patient pressure, the kind of pace you don't normally choose in home repair, because everything today teaches you to finish fast. But this didn't respond to fast. It responded to steady. After a while, I stepped back. The crack was gone under a rough, uneven line, not smooth like store-bought finish, but whole. Solid in a way that didn't look trying to impress anyone. I left it like that. No sanding, no polishing. Just let it be. That was the part that made me uneasy at first. Modern repair trains you to chase smoothness, to erase every texture until it disappears into the wall. This didn't disappear. It settled. Later, I tried understanding why. Not with theory at first, with observation. The mix wasn't shrinking as it dried. That alone changed everything. Modern compound pulls inward as moisture leaves. That pull creates hairline stress, and stress becomes cracks again. This didn't pull the same way. The fibers inside, whatever combination they were holding shape as it cured, like a skeleton inside soft material. And the mineral base, it didn't rush to harden. It tightened slowly, evenly, no sudden shift, no internal tension spike, just a long, quiet set. There's something you notice when you work with materials long enough. Fast drying looks convenient, until you realize it often finishes under tension, and tension always looks for a way out. That night I checked the wall twice. Then again the next morning, no line reappearing. No shadow returning under the paint, just a faint texture where the crack used to be. Not perfect, but stable. And strangely enough, that mattered more, because perfection is what you expect from something temporary. Stability is what you trust in something permanent. I don't want to overstate what I saw that week. This isn't magic. And it isn't a miracle fix for every wall in every house. It won't save bad framing. It won't fix movement in a foundation. It won't erase structural problems, honest limit. But for surface cracks like this, long, tired, repeating lines, it behaved differently than anything I'd used before. Better? Maybe. Or just more patient. That's the word I kept coming back to. Patient. The modern mix wanted to be finished quickly. This one didn't seem concerned about being finished at all, just complete. There's a difference. I thought about the man in the barn again. The way he said it didn't shrink the same way, not like a sales pitch. Like a warning against impatience. I left the room that night and didn't turn on the lights. Just stood in the hallway and looked back at the wall. It didn't feel like I had repaired it. It felt like I had slowed it down. And for the first time in a long time, the house felt like it was no longer arguing with itself, just resting, still. And that's when I understood the part no one tells you about old methods. They don't just fix things. They change how you stand in front of them afterward. The wall didn't call attention to itself anymore. That's how I noticed it worked. Not by looking new, not by looking perfect, but by stopping the habit of being noticed at all. Days passed without me checking it. That alone felt unusual. Most repairs keep asking for attention. A hairline here, a soft edge there. A reminder that something still needs fixing. This didn't. It just stayed. One evening I stood in front of it longer than I meant to, coffee going cold in my hand. Light slanting across the hallway. The line was still gone, not covered, not disguised. Gone in the way things go when they stop being a problem. And I found myself thinking less about the wall and more about everything that had trained me to expect it to fail again. That's a strange shift. When you stop blaming the crack and start questioning the cycle. Modern repair makes a quiet promise. Fix it fast, move on, come back when it breaks again. It sounds harmless until you realize how normal it becomes. How many small things in a house live inside that rhythm? Not broken, not fixed, just managed. I don't think anyone sets out to build systems like that on purpose. But systems don't need intention to repeat patterns. They just need incentives. And somewhere in that space, slower methods disappear. Not because they stopped working, but because they stopped fitting the pace. The mix I used didn't feel like a secret anymore. It felt like a different attitude toward time, less urgency, more allowance. The kind of approach you see in older barns still standing straight after decades of wind, not because they were built to impress anyone, but because they were built to outlast attention. I thought about the mason jar again, sitting there on the shelf, cloudy glass, unlabeled. It didn't look valuable, it didn't look modern, it just looked used. There's something honest about materials that don't try to look new. They don't compete, they just endure. A few days later, I helped a neighbor patch a corner in his garage. Same kind of crack, same kind of frustration. He had already gone through 2 modern patches on it, Both had failed. He watched me work slowly with the mix I had left over. Didn't say much. Just watched the way it held its shape going in. No sagging, no slumping. When I finished, he ran his hand over it. Not smooth, not perfect, but steady. He said something simple. That feels like it's staying. And that was enough. We didn't talk about brands. We didn't talk about systems. We didn't talk about what was better or worse. We just looked at a wall that wasn't arguing anymore. Later that night, I cleaned the bucket by hand, not because I had to, because it felt wrong to leave it dirty. That's another thing about slower materials. They change how you treat the tools afterward. Not everything modern is wrong. That's not the point. Some things should be fast, some things should be easy. But walls aren't supposed to be temporary agreements. They're supposed to hold the shape of a home. And when you find something that does that with less noise, you notice. I don't know if this mix is the answer for every house. It won't fix deep cracks in structure. It won't replace real construction work where it's needed. But for the kind of surface failures that keep returning in the same tired places, it does something modern compounds rarely do. It stops asking for a second chance. That alone changes how a house feels to live in. There's a stillness that comes after the repair is done right. Not excitement, not pride, just relief. The kind that settles into the room without announcing itself. Before I forget, there's something I should say plainly. I don't think knowledge like this belongs hidden, but I also don't think it belongs exaggerated. Tradition holds certain mixtures lasted longer in rural use because they were designed around patience and repair over time. But every home, every climate, every wall is different. What worked here may behave differently somewhere else. That's just honesty. Still, I understand why people kept using it, because once you've seen a wall stop reopening, you don't forget that feeling easily. It changes what you're willing to accept afterwards, not just in repairs and everything. And maybe that's the quiet part no one talks about. These old methods don't just fix cracks, they reset expectations. Before I leave you with this, I want to ask you something simple. Have you ever fixed something in your home only to watch it fail again later in the exact same place? Not the professional answer, not the technical one, just the real one. I'd be interested to hear what your hands have learned over the years that manuals never explained, because those are the kinds of fixes that tend to survive longest. And next time, there's another old method I want to show you. Something even older than this mix. Something used on outbuildings where small cracks were said to close back up on their own as the seasons changed. But that's a different kind of quiet story.